Good morning and welcome to another videocast by Henley Consulting, the specialist management consulting firm for the $125 billion FPD display market. And today again, I'm doing another one in my series of provocative ideas for the display market, and want to tee up the discussion of whether a merger of SDC and LGD in Korea to represent then one very large display company would be in all of our interests, whether it would be in Korea's interests and whether or not it would be good for the display market. And it's pretty clear to me that the forward-looking strategies of SDC and LGD are becoming more alike. You can look at the differences between the two. One has a slightly heavier focus on the small panel market, and the other one has a slightly bigger focus on the large panel white OLED market. But they're both, in a way, facing some of the same forward-looking decisions in terms of investments into automotive OLED and large gen IT OLED products. And actually, you could see that as an exciting future for both of them. This is a talk here. The picture is JS Chair from SDC talking about his vision where emissives become an $100 billion market and his own firm is fully $50 billion of that. So this is this incredible expansionary forward-looking view. But if we look at the detail then, actually LGD is actually saying quite a lot of similar things about the things that they want to do in the future. So quite a lot of their combined decisions are actually relatively similar. Both have looked to exit LCD, although SDC achieved it first. And I do have to say that I think in terms of execution, SDC has done a slightly better job than LGD, which is beginning to be reflected in the results differences. But they've both run for the door on LCD. In OLED, one is particularly strong in small panel flex OLED, and the other is the market category leader for large OLED television based on what's called a white OLED product, and is substantially bigger than SDC. There are some differences then and some sort of additive options if you put together SDC's interest in the foldable category and LGD's interests in transparent OLEDs that actually SDC initially came up with the idea for. They both are interested in automotive and large panel OLED IT related future investments, and then SDC has a particular interest in microdisplays. But you could actually sort of say that if you put this together, this would be one phenomenally powerful company that would be good at least for Korea Inc. And for Korea, and then you start questioning whether or not this would also then be good in competing with BOE and China Star in China, whether or not it creates additional barriers to entry for OLED, whether or not that then gives us a single monopolist in OLED, which to a degree it may do. But would this be good for the industry? So then the combination, and I think that's pretty clear, right, would be the absolute dominant player across OLED. Although, you can't say that they have complete hegemony on the total. BOE would still have a very solid OLED position. China Star, Tianma both have OLED plays. So, on a totally global picture, you could still say that this may or may not sort of trigger some sort of anti-competitive level. Beyond that, I wonder about just the culture fit of getting the SDC and LGD folks to work together after so many decades of rivalry, but whether or not that they could just get behind that this is good for Korea. Is it good for the display industry? I think it's potentially good to have a capability that can rival BOE of that sort of scale. The question I do have is whether or not a single OLED dominant business is good for everybody. Certainly Apple would have to come to its own point of view, and I'm sure there would be pros and cons from that. To one degree, you would get a slightly less Samsung exposed business, which you could source from heavily, but it would become a pretty much dominant player in the OLED business, and that may or may not be useful for companies buying from them. Although I do think it probably protects innovation by putting the two businesses together. So again, on balance, I think I quite like the idea. I'm not sure it's ever going to happen, but as a theoretical idea, I think it's certainly of interest. The question then is, this is going to be arranged formally through an actual merger of the two businesses? I think unlikely. But informally already, these discussions that seem to be happening between Samsung Electronics and LGD on white OLED TV supply may start a sort of Korea-centric triumvirate of the three companies working together to do things that may be better in the interest of Korea. And that may also be something that, in terms of a competitive tension, is actually good for the whole industry too. Anyway, I hope you thought that thinking was interesting. I'm sure I haven't got to the bottom of all my thoughts on this yet, and I'd certainly appreciate your thoughts and feedback.